In this video, I'll show you how I grew a mango from seed that was taken from the very first harvest off this Carrie Mango. This tree was planted here a year ago, as were these two other mangoes. That is a coconut cream mango in the front, and the Glen mango in the back left. The Carrie was the only one that wound up setting any fruit. By the way, if you would like to see flower to harvest on the Carrie Mango, please search my channel for a video titled First Carrie Mango, Hass Avocado, and Excel Fig Harvest. Before I show you how I grew my mango, I'd like to talk a little about this espalier section. I had a YouTube viewer ask about the measurements in this section, so I just wanted to talk a little about that. All of the trees planted in this section are citrus trees: grapefruit, mandarin, oranges, and a lemon tree. These posts are spaced at about 6 feet apart. And with the wood extension, they're about 5.5 feet in height. Within each 6-foot section, I planted 2 trees that are spaced at about 2 feet apart and about 1 foot from the wall, from the back wall. I know that's pretty close to the wall, but I wanted to have plenty of space from the tree to the end of this raised bed here, which measures about 45 inches. I wanted to leave as much space so that I'd be able to plant some fruit and vegetables in this area. This season I'll be growing more than I have in previous years, so I would like to maximize every bit of space. Haven't decided exactly what will go in this area and several other sections of my yard, but I'll be sure to post a video as soon as I start planting them. Anyway, back to the espalier area. I wanted to have several levels of lateral branch growth, so I decided a height of about 5 to 6 feet would be needed. The trees haven't really put on that much growth to start training them for espalier growth, but as soon as they do, I'll go ahead and post a follow-up video once they put on enough growth where I can start to prune them and start to train them to grow along the espalier section. After pounding these posts in the ground, they were only about 40 inches in height, so I added these boards to increase the height. I didn't treat the boards with any wood sealer because I wanted to keep the planting area free of chemicals as much as possible. The boards that I'm using in this raised bed section, as well as all other sections I have, those have been treated, but only on the outside. The inside section of these boards were left untreated. All I did to try to protect the wood was I just placed a plastic liner separating the soil from the wood. I'm sure eventually I'll have to go back and replace these boards, but they should last for several years. The boards up here, on the other hand, will need to be replaced. We've had quite a bit of rain lately, and there's already mold starting to develop on them. I'll have to redo this area. I think my best alternative would be to replace the wood with taller metal posts. Anyway, that project will have to wait for another day, so now on to the mango. Here's a picture of the mango I harvested. The Carrie Mango is a fiberless variety with excellent flavor. After picking the mango, I allowed it to ripen on the counter for a couple of days before cutting it open. After cutting it open, I removed the seed and I allowed it to dry overnight. I used a knife to scrape off some of the remaining flesh that clung onto the outer seed shell or husk. The actual seed is inside this outer shell. Allowing it to dry and scraping off as much of the flesh as possible will make it easier to handle while splitting it open to remove the seed. I used a knife and wedged it in this area to split it open. Here's the seed on the right after removing it from the husk. There's a thin outer skin that is easily removed. From research I've done, it's best to remove the skin so as to avoid the possibility of mold developing. Here in this pic you can see a small indentation where the fruit was attached to the stem on the tree. This is where the root will start to develop. I placed the seed in a shot glass with the end with the stem indentation pointing downward. I only filled the glass about halfway. A few days later, the root began to emerge. I should mention that I made sure to change out the water every other day. I also cleaned out the glass each time. Within a few days, the root had grown quite a bit. I had to use a small plastic creamer cup with the bottom cut out to raise the seed in the glass. I didn't want the root to touch the bottom of the glass and start to circle. I continued changing out the water every other day, and as the root developed and got a little bigger, I started to use a very soft brush to very gently brush the root while I ran it under the faucet just to clean it out, make sure that no mold was starting to set in. I had been placing the shot glass on the windowsill. This area provided about 6 to 7 hours of sun. Here it is a few days later. As you can see, the root was getting much bigger. After a little over 2 weeks, the stem and first leaves began to develop. By this time, it had to be moved to a taller glass. A couple of days later, you could clearly see the stem and new leaves. The root and the stem were growing very close to one another, so I had to position the seed in a manner that allowed the stem to be out of the water and only allowed the roots to be immersed in the glass. Within a few days, the stem had put on good growth and had to come up with a way to keep the root wet and the stem and leaves dry. This is what I came up with. A bigger glass with some wire to hold the seed in. After the leaves had put on a little growth, I placed a Ziploc bag over the glass in order to create a dome to hold in the humidity. Within a few days, the leaves were notably larger. the root had also put on a good amount of growth. At this point, I decided it was time to transplant my mango. I selected a clear plastic container so that I could see when the roots would reach the edge of the container. After cutting the top off the container, it measured 8 inches in height and about 4 inches in diameter. I poked several holes in the bottom for drainage. I filled the container with soil mixture consisting of organic soil, peat moss, and some worm castings. I also added a little perlite to improve the drainage. I placed the mango in the container and positioned the seed so that it was slightly exposed. I then placed a Ziploc bag over the container and returned the mango to the windowsill. Although the mango was doing well, I decided to move it into a grow tent that I was using to do some indoor seed sowing. I kept the mango in the grow tent for about 3 weeks, then moved it back to the windowsill. By this time, the central leader was starting to develop. Here it is now. Looks like some new leaves are starting to form up at the very top. I've been taking it out in the backyard a few hours each day just to try and harden it. It's still really young, but the leaves have hardened nicely. I'll keep doing this until spring rolls around and the nights get a little warmer. I'm sure by then it'll be acclimated, so I'll be able to leave it in a shaded area outside. I'll be sure to keep you posted on its progress. Well, that would be it for this video. Before closing, I'd like to mention that I've already started sowing some seeds, as I previously mentioned. I have some tomatoes, peppers, squash, and some melons. I plan on expanding my fruit and vegetable garden. I intend on growing about 10 or 12 tomato plants. I'm only going to grow Roma and San Marzano tomatoes, which I plan to use for pasta for canning. I'll be planting most of the tomatoes in these planters. I still need to transplant some of the plants that are in here, like peppers, oregano plant, and this volunteer tomato that I'd also like to transplant. I need to add some fill dirt and build some type of support system for the tomatoes, which I tend to grow vertically. I also have some tomato cages, a couple here, and another one on the end, and another one over here. I also have this trellis that I plan to grow some squash and snow peas. I'll be placing the trellis here in this area. It's not a big space, but the trellis is not too wide, so it should fit. And I also have these really tall cages. I'm going to try to grow some small to medium-sized melons vertically on these. I think they'll be sturdy enough to support the melons. I still need to do a little work in this section, and these cages still need to be buried in the ground. There used to be a hedge growing in this area which I recently pulled, and I planted these. This Suriname cherry here was recently planted, and it's getting ready to flower. They're a little hard to pick up on camera, but it has several flower buds that are forming and almost ready to flower. It has quite a few, but not as many as this other one over here. This is my Lolita Suriname cherry, which is a black variety. This one is loaded with flower buds. In past years, this tree has been a real heavy producer, and it looks like this season is not going to be an exception. It looks like it's going to be putting on another heavy crop. It's got quite a few flower buds. It's got a little bit of leaf damage from the cold, but it should still do well and put on quite a few. This other one over here, though, it's a different story. I recently posted a video talking about how I've been having trouble getting this one to fruit, but as you can see here, there's at least one that's setting. Has a few more that are starting to develop. Not sure if they're gonna reach full maturity, but it does look like there's a few others that are starting to develop a little fruit. There's only a handful. I'm not sure how many it'll wind up producing, but it's definitely going to be a small crop. I'm not really sure why this tree hasn't produced any crops. It's been in the ground for 2 years, and it's healthy. It's put on quite a bit of growth since I planted it here, but it just doesn't seem to want to set any fruit. It's flowered in the past, but it just never set any fruit. Well, we'll see how it does. I'll be posting videos as soon as I start in this planting area. I'm working on my vegetable garden, and I'll also keep you updated on the Suriname cherry trees as well. Okay, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you'll follow along when I start my fruit and vegetable garden. If you are interested in watching those videos, please hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so you can get an alert as soon as I upload a new video. As always, stay safe, grow your own, and thank you for watching.